Welcome back to Seat Time, and today we're going to talk about 5 tips for race day nutrition. Now, nutrition can get convoluted very quickly, so we are going to keep this simple and at a base level. When you have questions, ask them. I am going to be getting ready to go riding tomorrow, and so let's go on a journey. As I pack up for the day, we're going to talk to you about these tips. And again, if you've got questions, ask them in the comments. If you have comments, leave them in the comments. Off to tip number 1. Tip number 1 for race day nutrition is preparation for what the week ahead of your race weekend is going to look like. Because what you need to do is you need to figure out how many races are you going to have. Are you going to be racing all weekend? And if you're going to be racing all weekend, then you know that recovery is going to be very important for your weekend. But if you're just going out there and you've got a 3-hour race and it's on one day of the weekend, then you're just prepping, right? You're planning on how you're going to fuel up until your race. And we'll talk about what during the race fuel looks like in another tip. If you're gonna be out there for 2 full days, 3 days, right? You're gonna have a multi-stage race, then recovery is gonna be a huge part of that. So what is that gonna look like for you? How should you plan for the weekend? So let's talk about motocross, right? In motocross, you're really just prepping for a 30-minute moto, and then you're gonna recover after your moto. So you're gonna have before the bike nutrition, you're not gonna need to worry about hydration and nutrition on the bike, but then afterwards, you're gonna wanna have recovery so that you can prepare for that next moto that you have. When it comes to things like cross country and hare scrambles, if you only have one of those on the weekend, again, they're gonna be anywhere between 1 to 3 hours. So you're going to want to prepare, understand what that's gonna look like. How am I gonna fuel the bike? How am I gonna fuel the body while I'm fueling the bike? Am I gonna have on the bike nutrition? With it hour to 3 hours, yes, you're going to wanna have on the bike nutrition. Now, if we go to something more like an enduro, right? Or a sprint enduro, you're gonna have time between tests for fueling. So depending on whether your enduro is going to take you super far away or it's more like a sprint enduro where every time you're able to come back to the truck, you have to plan for that. So you need to figure out, do I need to have more hydration and more fuel on person so that I can have those between tests, or can I have those at the car ready to go and be prepared so that when I come in from that test, I can quickly make any adjustments to the bike, but then you can start fueling your body again with hydration, carbs, protein, and things we're going to get into. So tip number 1, you need to prepare the week ahead of what your entire race weekend is going to look like and know how you're going to fuel your body before, if you need to fuel during, and then of course recovery afterwards for whatever is coming up next. Tip number 2 for race day nutrition is that carbohydrates are your friend. So as you're further away from the race, maybe in the morning of, that's when you're looking for slower digesting carbohydrates. That's why you see a lot of people eat oats or grains early in the morning, because they can sit in the system, they have a lot more fiber, and they take a little bit longer to digest. But as you get closer to the race, specifically about 45 minutes to an hour, or your event, whatever that is, that's when you want to start digesting faster burning carbohydrates. Yes, that's when you see a lot of people start to eat a lot of gummies. Sour Patch Kids are fun, but in the long run, if you're looking for longevity in life, that is just a route that you don't want to go down. We can get into that in the comments if you want to. So, slower burning carbohydrates earlier in the morning, further away from your race. When you're about 45 minutes to an hour, that's when you're looking for faster burning carbohydrates. You can find those in supplements as well. So if you're looking for a mixture, something like Rhino Power, iRide, Drink Hydration, there are many out there that you can look for. So you can find some carbohydrates in those drinks that have electrolytes as well, if that's what you're looking for. I will tell you though, whole foods, bananas and oranges also work as well, and do not let a lot of people talk to you about the fiber and the slowdown of digestion, because whole foods are going to be better for us in the long term of our life. But if you want that quick hit, yes, you can leverage things like gummies or anything that is straight dextrose or straight glucose. So remember, tip number 2, carbs are your friend. Tip number 3 is do not try new foods on a race weekend. Sometimes you don't even want to try new foods during a race week. 1, you could get diarrhea. 2, you don't know what it's gonna do to you, because you know you're gonna go to that gas station and you're gonna see that burrito and it's gonna look super tasty and you're gonna wanna try it, but you have no idea what it's gonna do to you. Or you could run into a friend who just started a new supplement company and you're like, he's trying to sell you on this new supplement. Again, if you haven't tried it, you have absolutely no idea what it's gonna do to your system. So as you're leading up to your race weekend, you wanna stay consistent with what you know your body is used to. So if you have a scheme of rice, fruits, cashews, and a couple supplements that work well with your system, stick with that. So tip number 3, do not try new foods the week prior and on a race weekend. Tip number 4 has to do with hydration and electrolytes. Obviously, just like with food, how we want to build up to our race weekend, right? Have a little bit of a caloric surplus, carbo loading. We also want to do the same thing with hydration and our electrolytes. But just like we want to fuel on the bike if we're having a long day, we want to make sure that we're doing that with our electrolytes as well. So hydration and electrolytes leading up to the weekend, we want to make sure that on race day we're not peeing clear. If we're peeing clear, that means we're just peeing the water out, and it's a good chance that all the supplements, all of the electrolytes you're trying to build up, you're just peeing them out. This hydration bladder is the perfect place to put some of those supplements for on the bike consumption. So just like you saw me put in 2 element packets that I use for electrolytes, these don't have any sugar in them. You can do the same thing with any of those supplements that you're talking about. Because of my psoriatic arthritis, I am actually looking at using rice milk to use as my in bladder on the bike carbohydrate to have throughout the day. So again, hydration is very important. Electrolytes are important. Throughout the day, if you are having consistent activity and you're looking for a formula that's a good average to start with, every hour you should consume 600 milliliters of water, 30 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of protein with electrolytes. So use that, play with it, and enjoy tip number 4, which has a lot to do with hydration, electrolytes, and of course, on the bike fueling. Tip number 5 has to do with recovery. The race is over. If it's your last race for the weekend, or if you've got another event coming up in a finite amount of time, it doesn't matter. Your best window to introduce carbohydrates and protein, now we're going for a little bit more protein into the system, is in that first immediate to 30 minutes. Now again, that hour to 3 hours afterwards, your body is still going to be going through the recovery process, and it will be doing that for days afterwards. But what we're trying to do is get the immediate nutrients into the system ready for your body to utilize. What I love to do is I love to have a recovery shake ready to go. This is gonna have, obviously we've talked about my issue with carbohydrates and whole foods because of my psoriatic arthritis, but again, we talked about that 30 grams of carbohydrates. You could up that to 45 to 50 grams, and then you wanna have more protein. So maybe like 25 to 30 grams of protein in these recovery shakes. You could also do electrolytes if you do not feel like you've had enough throughout the day. And then again, this could be close to that 600 milliliters of water. So you see how this is working out. It's about consistency and being ready and prepared for the weekend. Why is a beer perfect for recovery, but also very detrimental to recovery? So a beer has a lot of the carbohydrates and some of the nutrients that you're going to need, that your body's gonna want. Obviously there's water, there are carbohydrates, there's even a little bit of fat and proteins for your body to play with. It's quickly digestible. The problem is it also has alcohol in it, and your body is gonna prioritize processing the alcohol over everything else, because that alcohol is considered a toxin. Your body knows that. So it is gonna go to start processing the alcohol before it does anything else. So if you're gonna have a beer, it's best not to have it within that first hour, so that you get nutrients like this we've talked about in this shake straight into the system. And if you want to have that beer, have it a little bit afterwards, not directly after the race. This is what's going to help affect recovery. If you just want to have the beer, have the beer. I'm not telling you not to enjoy the beer. I'm just telling you why that a beer immediately after your event could be a bad idea for your recovery. So I hope you guys enjoyed these 5 tips. I think the number 6, right, the hidden tip in all of this is just being prepared, having the consistency, that realizing that the more consistent you can be during these race weekends, the easier it becomes. I probably just gave you guys a lot to worry about. Don't worry about all of them. Pick one of them and figure out how that's gonna work for you. Build on it, play with it, and then once it feels comfortable, add one of the other tips. This can't happen overnight. You'll just stress yourself out, feel like you screwed something up, and maybe just give it all up and go back to doing absolutely nothing. That's not where you wanna be, so start small. Hopefully this was educational for you guys. If it wasn't, at least it might be educational. We can have some fun here on the internet. And I wanna know what y'all think. Are there, routines that work for you guys? Put those in the comments. Do you have questions on things we talked about? Want to get more detailed? Ask them in the comments. Of course, if nothing else, if we don't get a chance to see you on the trail, at least we'll get to see you on the internet. Enjoy getting sea time. And we'll see you for the next one. Oh shit! Woo! Woo!